you think is what you create in your reality. So what you choose to think and how you choose to feel determines what you will experience in your life. And so that, in a sense, is being nomadic more than anything. It's not even about the environment and how you live, what's your lifestyle, but is your mind nomadic, or are you too attached to certain thoughts and beliefs and paradigm?
Welcome to And Then I Did This. Prepare to be inspired as we celebrate the unique journeys of individuals who've had the courage to break free and live life on their own terms. Their lives prove that you truly can be free to live your best and most authentic life. Let's get to it. Today, I have a special guest. She's the founder of Redefining Success. Having started in corporate, she stepped out to help leaders build extraordinary lives from the inside out. Living life fully as a bit of a modern-day nomad, she helps others with the inner work that fuels fulfillment and true freedom. So, Ruta, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. It's such an honor to be here.
Share your journey. You started in Lithuania, but you are now in Portugal and have lived so many different places. Share a little about your journey and how you got where you are now.
Yeah. So where do I even start? So when I lived in Lithuania, I had this urge to go and explore. And at first, I thought that I was going to explore my mind and all of the greatness that the mind provides, like the realities and stuff like that, the mystical stuff. But I was drawn to going abroad to begin with. And so I started by going to Vienna. I lived in Vienna. I lived in Berlin. I lived in the Netherlands, in Belgium. Then I moved to Portugal. Then I went to the Brazilian jungle and lived in the Brazilian jungle for more than a year. And then last September, I just came back to Portugal. And guess what? I'm also moving out of Portugal yet again. I'm packing my bags and I don't even know where exactly I'm going to end up, but my first destination very soon, in fact, in 1 week from now, is going to be Panama. And then I don't know where I'm going to go after that. But my journey has been this, I wouldn't call it necessarily nomadic because I was always actually living in those places.
Right.
But each and every place was providing me with something, with some lessons about myself. And so when I moved to Portugal for the first time, at that time, I already quit my corporate job. So I worked as a project manager for more than 10 years, traveling within Europe mainly for work. And one day I realized that I actually don't want to work for anybody else. And my job felt purposeless. And I felt like if these companies would go bankrupt tomorrow, nobody would give a damn. Right. And that really crushed me. It really felt like, well, everything that I do actually makes no sense.
Right.
Like, it doesn't really make a difference in the world. So that's when I started realizing that, in fact, I want to work with people and I want to help other people also to realize what they want and what's their purpose and how to live a joyful life, how to feel aligned with their desires, with their values, with what their needs are. And so long story short, then I quit the job. I started my coaching business back in 2019. I moved to Portugal because I was suddenly free and I didn't have to live in cities, in the concrete jungle. So I moved to the tiny places and I kind of isolated myself to heal myself to begin with, because as you can imagine, you probably have done it yourself. And a lot of the people who are listening to this conversation probably have been through some kind of like, okay, so how do I figure out who I am? So I was going through that process to reinvent myself. And here I am kind of feeling like I'm on the other side now with the new identity, with the reinvented version of myself.
Oh, so good. And you're honestly blessed because many people don't have that wake up, pause, the caution sign. You're headed for a future of just repetitive churn and burn, go to work, get the paycheck, wait for retired, which I say add the D to retirement, because people are tired by the time they get to that stage. They're not even able to fully enjoy life like you can at this point. Both step out and be true to yourself and help other people and know that wasn't your purpose. What you were doing and living was not your purpose. What were the signs? Because I know there are a lot of people that are listening to this who are in those roles and may not have had the wake up call yet. What were the signs that told you, I need to start looking at what I'm doing?
There were so many. I just had a conversation exactly about this with a friend of mine. And I was like, you know what? It was like stacking a lot of different experiences. And it wasn't like one single situation that suddenly made me realize like, oh, okay, now it's epiphany. It was more like these constant experiences of life that made me realize more and more that I'm on the wrong path. But for a very long time, I didn't know how to admit that to myself. And so I felt like, well, I'm on this path and I'm supposed to feel good about it because that's what everybody does. I mean, all of the people in my environment, my family, my friends, my colleagues, everybody lived this way. They were all climbing the career ladder. They were all taking mortgages. They were all getting married. They were having kids. And what happened eventually back in 2018 is that I felt like I hit the rock bottom. And what I mean with that is that not only that I felt like my career was purposeless, but also I was in a relationship that was just not working. And I was in that relationship for 5 years. And I thought, well, if I continue this way, it's just not going anywhere.
Right.
And on top of that, I felt like I was just extremely unhappy. At the time, I was 28. And at 28, I asked myself, if this is how my life is going to continue and I will continue being so unhappy, like what kind of existence is this?
Right.
And so it was a sign from the universe came when I saw a Facebook post by someone who was studying psychology at the time, and she and her fellow students of psychology were looking for kind of final projects, people who would be willing to be patients and basically like case studies. And I was like, oh my God, this is a sign. I need to work with this person. And suddenly that was the moment when I hired this person as my very first coach. And that's when things really started changing, because suddenly I realized I need to do something about it. And I can't, there is no lower to go. Like I truly hit the rock bottom and now there's only way up, but I need someone's help. So that's when things really started changing.
Outside perspectives, a mirror for ourselves can make all the difference. I mean, I remember when I went through the coaching program, even myself in New York, and we spent 9 months being mirrors for each other, and everything that you learn through being in that experience completely shifts how you see the world. I mean, even to the point of, I remember wanting to leave New York and feeling I was in a career, like making big money, not really happy what I was doing, wanting to move and not feeling like, oh, how can I move where I want to be, which was on the West Coast, like in California or somewhere. How can I make this kind of money and move that direction? And the coach that I had gone to school with who was coaching me, I remember sitting on a park bench saying to her, I don't know if I can do this to move. How would I do it and make the money? And she said, is that the truth? Or is that a story you're telling yourself?
Boom. Wow.
Exactly. And I had tears running down my cheeks when I was talking initially, and that stopped immediately. I went straight back to my apartment after that call, and I put myself out there, contacted people who I knew were on the West Coast, and literally within less than a month, I was packed and moved and in like a VP of global media role, which once again, I mean, it was good at the moment to get me out of there, but it wasn't what I was meant to be doing ultimately. But I'm saying all that to say, yeah, a coach, and which is ultimately what you're doing to help people reflect on greater fulfillment. I mean, that talk a little bit about the people and what you're seeing and of trends with people today and what's happening with the work you're doing, because I think that's would be interesting too.
I guess what I see is that more and more people are open to different perspectives, and more people are actually looking for fulfillment. And I think this is a part of the conversation where I can share a little bit about my mission, because
Yes.
I mentioned in the introduction, it's about redefining success. And that phrase came to me in the very beginning, back in 2019, when I started coaching people. So I was a part of a coaching program, and I was just learning to actually coach other people. And prior to that, I didn't even know what a coach really meant, to be honest.
Right. Right.
And so this phrase redefining success came to me when I started realizing that a lot of people are chasing all the wrong things because that's what they think success means.
Right.
And I didn't realize how many people have this very limited definition of success, as if it's all about a house, a successful career, and like a fancy car, or all of the material things and possessions and stuff like that. And what I noticed is that a lot of people actually don't ever talk about what success means. It was never even a question. And so in the last years, what I started seeing is that more and more people are going in this direction of like, actually, success is debatable. And each and every person has a completely different understanding of what success means to them. And for some, maybe it's family. For some, maybe it's being free and adventurous and doing something crazy in life. For some, it might actually be ambition and doing something absolutely incredible and building businesses and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of how do you see it. So I think that's the trend, that more and more people are realizing that there are different ways to see reality. There are different ways to define what matters to you, and actually have a conversation about that. It's not a taboo in any way, in any shape or form. And if you feel like something is off,
Right.
then talk about it, then reach out to someone, then search for information about it, because there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing going on that you cannot resolve. And so I think there's just simply way more awareness and way more acceptance, and therefore more people are willing to be vulnerable around these topics, which is incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I think when we look at all of the trends, even on LinkedIn, with burnout being such a huge topic, like who talked about that previously? It was just sit up, put out, do the work and be glad and celebrate your successes, climb the ladder. And then I always say, be careful, you climb the ladder and you may wind up, you're leaning on the wrong wall because you're not even somewhere where you want to be. You may be chasing society's illusion, which is when I think initially realized being in advertising and just knowing some of the meetings that I would be in where we'd be like, oh, with toys, like we have the nag factor. We have to make sure that parents, the child nags the parent a certain number of times in the focus group before they would continue developing the product. So like the influence and the subtle messaging that is given and manipulation that comes along with a lot of what we're told and shown that success is, which is like the fake Instagram reels with the fake lives with 20-year-olds with the mansions and the Bugattis and just whatever that is. It being true to ourselves and not buying into the external, I guess, narrative of what we can either be told this is what success is. If you, all the things you listed off, house, kids, all this marriage and settling down. And it's like, I love your footloose, fancy free, like you're, as you corrected, like you're not a nomad. You are experiencing, you're immersing yourself in the culture, which I love that because you get a different experience than if you were to just be there for a short month or so.
Yeah. And at the same time, I am actually going to be a nomad from my next chapter soon. 1 week later, when I go to Panama, I intentionally don't want to have a base for a while. So I will be a nomad. And it's an interesting experience to have when you realize that you are not actually attached to the place or things, but you have your home here. Your home is always with you. And actually there's no need for you to own a lot of stuff or it's just you're a free person, you're a free human being, you're a free spirit, and you can choose how to navigate your life, and you decide deliberately every single moment where your mind is going. What you think is what you create in your reality. So what you choose to think and how you choose to feel determines what you will experience in your life. And so that, in a sense, is being nomadic more than anything. It's not even about the environment and how you live, what's your lifestyle, but is your mind nomadic, or are you too attached to certain thoughts and beliefs and paradigm, stuff like that? And that really makes a huge difference in life.
Yeah. I love that. And that to be a conscious nomad and experiencing different things versus just, I want to experience living in the jungle. I want to experience living in, like, as you said, like Portugal, like different countries and places. The attachment, I think that is what I just think of George Carlin's Stuff video, where if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. It's hilarious because he talks about how we accumulate stuff. And then we have so much stuff that we get a storage unit to put our stuff in because it won't all fit in the box that we have. And then we go on vacation, we take our stuff with us, but then someone invites us to go to another island. For example, they're in Hawaii. So now you have to figure out, what stuff am I going to leave here in my hotel room? And what stuff so we can get caught up in things and possessions. And in the end, we come with nothing and we leave with nothing. But what we've developed within ourselves and how at home we are within our own being. And that's the priceless part of life.
That's so beautifully said. And believe it or not, I can fit my entire life into 5 bags.
Wow.
And I'm going to travel with 2 of them, and I will leave 3 of them here in Portugal. But honestly, if I lose these 3, even if I lose all of the 5 bags and I'm just stripped naked,
right,
I will be fine. I know I'll be fine. I will figure it out. Yeah. And I think for anyone listening, that level of detachment, it's not even about detachment as much. I think it's about really putting your priorities straight, really understanding, is stuff actually important to me?
Right.
Or what's important is the way I feel.
Right.
My relationships.
Right.
My decisions, my career choices.
Yeah.
What's actually really important? And I think a lot of people never think about this. They never really slow down to ask these very important existential questions. And they just run in this circle, recreating the same reality over and over again. And then they wonder, oh, how did that happen? Well, because you never asked yourself.
Right, exactly. And it's making me think a couple things, which is what I've seen happen, like myself, other people, like family, where if you're not truly content and happy within what you're doing and you're just going through the motions, people will start to numb themselves, whether it's shopping or drinking or whatever the vice is. I actually thought about writing a newsletter on, like, what's your vice? Because everyone will have one if you're not fully engaged in your life and feeling, I'm living all out. I am loving what I'm doing and I'm loving where I'm living, or I'm at least happy with my general world around me. But I can say, as someone I was a single mom most of my adult life. And so the routine and the responsibility, it was challenging to be able to step out and reflect on what needs to change. I mean, my exit was a 6-year lead up when I left my first corporate job, where I became the VP of marketing, which was the role I was aspiring to be, and got there. And it wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be. So I knew I needed to get out. But, with a mortgage and 2 young children, it was like I had to plan my exit. But I kept that vision alive, and I was willing to walk away from stock options and a salary that was like, I would say guaranteed, but I'd been there. I was almost qualifying for early retirement technically back then. They let people early, if you committed a certain amount of your life to a company, they would do that. My brother retired from the phone company. So like he was someone that I was kind of like, okay, well, he's doing that. I can do that too. And I was like, no, I can't do this because I'm getting siloed and I'm suffocating in this role that is not serving me. So I'm just glad to hear people are questioning things and not just swallowing hook, line, and sinker. Okay, this is just my plight in life, because that's very like soul sedating. I'll say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, what you said was very important I want to highlight this whole numbing part, because when you talked about that, it's as if you were describing my past self. So a little bit about also my journey and story is that I lost mom when I was 23, and my mom passed away when she was 47, which is insane. Right. And so a lot of things happened after that, but my way of grieving, I didn't allow myself to grieve because I thought my mom wouldn't want to see me suffer.
Right.
So I was just pretending like everything is fine. Right. And my way of numbing was exactly what you described. I was online shopping all the time. I was watching Netflix, binge watching all the time. I was checking social media and scrolling mindlessly. I was even taking my phone everywhere I go, like in the office. I would go to the bathroom and I would take my phone to check my social media. Like it was insane. And on top of that, I was binge eating as well. So I developed a binge eating disorder. So all of these signs were basically showing like, you realize what you're doing to yourself. And eventually I came to this realization, this is not healthy. So I don't know how I realized that, but some kind of higher guidance was like, look into this, because all of this is unhealthy. All of this is just you pretending like everything is fine, but clearly it's not. And so speaking of people who never really question, well, these signs are your first invitations to actually look into it. Like if you notice that you have some kind of behavior, either it's smoking, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's watching something, maybe it's gambling, maybe it's sex, maybe like there are so many different ways to numb yourself.
Right.
It's a sign.
Yeah. And people will suffer in silence until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And then you'll do something. And I just encourage anyone listening to this, take the first step. Just take the first step and at least look within. Reach out to Ruta, do something to change the trajectory, because otherwise there's a book that I will not die an unlived life, like, or a saying that we can, if you look at the people on their deathbeds, I just saw this again the other day, where it's the regrets of the dying on there. There's like, not that they wish they'd have spent more time in the office, not all these external things that we're told and encouraged to do. It's spending the time with your loved ones, telling people that how you feel about them, that you care about them, that you love them, doing things that make your heart sing, not just working or doing something that's sedating your soul. Life's too short.
Yeah, these are such important points. And also, speaking of relationships, there's this longest ever conducted research by Harvard University that's, I think by now, maybe 87 years long research. And they are analyzing people's lives and generations of people's lives. And what they found is that the most important part of life or characteristic, or like what actually makes your life worth living, that makes you live longer and happier, is relationships. And not just any relationships, but quality relationships, deep connection, authentic connection, vulnerable connection. And that's so fascinating, because it's not about the money. It's not about the possessions. It's not about the fancy house. Although I don't say anything against that. I love nice things. I love beautiful things. I love and drive a nice car. I love to live in a nice, beautiful home. I love, but it's not key.
Right.
Those are
Right.
just beautiful kind of additional things like cherries on top. But
Right.
the real deal are the relationships. And I think, like, to your point, a lot of people realize that way too late in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And just, realize it. And it's like they've missed out or failed relationships along the way because they've been married to their work or their job. I mean, it's like you and I are two examples of being willing to look inside, realize, okay, this is not working and I need to make a change. And being willing to do the hard thing, which winds up being the biggest blessing to look within and take that first step. And I say, don't be a scaredy cat. Like, just do it, because the other side, once you've taken that first step, everything else becomes easier. Not that it's like a slam dunk, but it's like once you step out, there are so many resources out there because there are so many people questioning what they're doing with their lives. And then I think, honestly, the layoffs that are happening, the AI coming into the mix, like, people need to be reassessing, what am I doing and what could I be doing that I would be more in alignment with myself, and give themselves permission to explore, at least explore. Because once you start exploring, you're going to realize, like, wow, this comfort zone was not all that comfortable. I'm getting out. I'm right.
I love that. And it makes so much sense. And to add to that, it's not even that you will not be afraid. Like, it's not like, oh, it's not that. It is scary. And it's supposed to be scary. But you know what? It's the most rewarding thing you will ever do.
Yeah.
It's the most exciting thing you will ever do. It's the one thing that you will be so freaking proud of. Like, every single crazy decision I've made since 2018, I'm so freaking proud of them. If I really compare these decisions in the last 7 years compared to the first 28 years of my life, like, the first 28 years of my life were like, yeah, okay, I did some cool things too, but am I really proud of them? It just happened. But the most crazy, awesome experiences I had were the ones when I was absolutely terrified. And you know what? I did it anyway. And so for anyone who's listening, you will be scared. And it's supposed to be the case. Like you said, in the comfort zone, not much happens and not much excitement is there. Like, the actual true love and excitement and beauty and adventure and even a peace of mind, all of these things live on the other side.
Right.
When you actually face your fear, you're like, you know what? I see you, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you've been given the nudge, if you're getting the nudge or the urge or the this isn't working kind of vibe, then you have to step out. And for people to just know you're not the only one who's done it. I mean, you and I are perfect examples. I mean, of that. I'm just a few years further. Like, I did it 10 years ago. So it's, and people I know will be afraid, but there are support resources available. Just look around and don't be afraid to reach out and just
I love
try
that
different
so
things.
much. This is such an important piece of this conversation, because a lot of people think that they're alone in all of this. And I thought I was alone because I was so proud of being independent. And because I'm independent, I thought that I'm alone and I have to do everything myself. And then I was like, wait a second, actually, I have a support system.
Right.
I have people who love me. I know people all over the world who would help me out if something happened. And honestly, like, so many of us think that we're alone and we're too proud
Right.
ask for help. And it's just like, step down from the pedestal. It's all fine. We're all the same. We're all human. And asking for help not only is beautiful and helpful to you, but it's also a gift to the other person who is going to help you out. Because honestly, like, when I'm asked to help someone, I'm like, such an honor. I love helping people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's our ego that will get in the way. And if we put that aside and just realize anything that's coming up that's blocking us, or that's just our ego. And it's like, thank you, but no, I'm going to do this anyway, even though it's uncomfortable. I'm going to do it because I know whatever's pushing me in this direction, I need to follow through. Yeah, I need to follow through. So what final words of advice would you have for people out there thinking about making a change, exploring what's possible? What advice and tips would you have for them?
Definitely listen to your heart and your gut feeling more than anything. Because again, a lot of people are listening to all the wrong things and they're way too rational. Again, I was one of them. I was like, I need to calculate everything. I need the statistics. I need to figure it all out. I need to have a plan. I need to organize myself. I need to know what's going to happen. But really, the growth happens and the transformation happens. And really, the fulfillment comes from uncertainty and embracing the unknown.
Right.
And that comes from you listening to your heart, because some of the decisions are not going to make sense. They will not, but they will feel right. And so when you listen to your heart, when you listen to your gut feeling, even if you can't actually explain it, justify it, rationalize it, but somehow it just feels like the right thing to do it.
Yeah, that is just such wise advice. Yeah, because our heart knows, our head is there in our thoughts that like to keep us safe, like stay where it's safe. And that's not where the magic is at all.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Ruta. I am just so happy to have had you on the show. And I'm going to make sure if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach out?
The best is my website, which is redefiningsuccess.co.uk. You can find all the links to all the social media platforms. You can find my email address there. If you want to drop me an email, that's where you find me.
And I'm going to link everything in the show notes below. So anybody listening, just look in the show notes and you'll find her. She's really active on LinkedIn. I know that because she's definitely influencing people's lives and sharing her wisdom there too. So Ruta, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such an amazing conversation.
And that's a wrap on another episode of And Then I Did This, celebrating the lives of those who've walked away from the beaten path to pursue work and a life that nourishes their soul. If you're feeling inspired and ready to explore your own path to freedom, check out youcanbefree.life, where you'll find resources and support to help you break free and live life on your own terms. See you next time.